Well, but that is the purpose, isn't it? That's why we have been talking about the dynamics of Loosh over the past couple of weeks. We've been talking about what else have we been talking about, Adrian? It all ties together.
Well, that if we can transform those pieces of ourselves that are personally adding to the
Of
loosh,
course,
that we
so that's why we asked you the question last week. Are you in control of your emotions, or are your emotions in control of you?
well, I've been
And in the dynamics of your emotions being in control of you, then you're just kind of manifesting from a dynamic, from a loose dynamic. You're not going from a foundation of love.
no, of course, it's going to
And
matter.
it's not just Adrian. We speak in the collective you.
But I've been having waves of real terror and fear come across that seemingly have nothing to do with my life. And I can go, oh, I'm an empath picking up what's out there. And that's bullshit. I mean, it may be true, but ultimately
Well,
doesn't
you
do
would
me
have
any
to have
good.
a sympathetic vibration,
Right.
wouldn't you?
Have to have some personal tie in, which is why our own personal tie ins could
But
allow
that
us.
personal tie-in doesn't have to be mental. That personal tie-in can be completely emotional. Yes, Shell, go ahead.
I feel like it just makes us human, the waves that come and go, and just be consciously aware of, this isn't affecting me, and, send love and compassion and just get back to that heart center. But I've been feeling the waves too, and I just got to be more conscious of it and
Sure, but
redirect
what's the result, dear one? You know, what's the result? What's instead of having a dynamic of fear, in a way, doesn't it give you hope for humanity, hope for the future, hope for the dynamics of the possibilities of reality? Doesn't it play more with the dynamics of the reality that you all have been talking about, what you wish to be able to create in its own way, even though there has been a dynamic of a tragedy in this sort of way, but each and every one of you knows that we have been talking about for a couple of years now that whole dynamic of does things have to be washed away in order to rebuild in a new sort of way? Well, they don't have to be, but son of a gun, if you don't now have an opportunity in that sort of way, and you're building it from a dynamic of love and compassion.
Yeah, just taking the good out of what happened.
That's just the point, isn't it? Not that you should ignore the other.
Right.
It's not. That's part of the dynamic of the duality. But again, it's knowing that whole dynamic. No one, we have often said, no one lives or dies by accident. And when a whole bunch of people leave at the same time, they're saying something to the rest of you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So all of those souls that left during the dynamics of the flood, if you really get right down to the dynamics, you can say, yes, they left in order to be able to bring out and to show to the rest of you this dynamic of love and caring and true connection of all humanity. That's huge. That's such a dynamic of a blessing in that sort of way, unless, of course, you judge death and you judge the whole dynamic as it all having to be a great failure and a great catastrophe. And you can just keep going with the conspiracy theories and you could keep going with the dynamic, or you could change your emotional templates, your emotional dynamics, and by accepting the beauty and accepting the miraculousness of the dynamics of the change in energy. In other words, the way people had to respond, because they could have responded with more of a Mad Max kind of dynamic. There could have been more of that dynamic where people began to fight each other over scarce resources, and instead of coming together, it could have been the whole other side of that energetic dynamic. It could be Hamas against the Israelis, or it could be the Democrats against the Republicans, or it could be the rednecks against the well-educated, or, or on and on and on, Again, here's that dynamic: separation, division, constriction, or unity.
I feel like that just kind of shows some of the growth that has been occurring in humanity, that it didn't go that far.
Sure, because, again, look at the dynamics. You have all, especially those of you that we would consider light workers, you have been all feeling very frustrated recently. It seems like the dynamics, those of you that have been working with us, those of you that work with others in that sort of way, their one desire is to be able to affect a dynamic, or be able to have a reflection of a dynamic of positive change in your world. And even though, as we say, even though there had to be the dynamic of that washing away first, but it's filling that dynamic is love and compassion. It's not being filled with loosh. It's not being filled with negativity. Now, are you going to allow it and this is the new dynamic. It's now really easy to be angry at the government. It's now really easy to be outraged at that whole dynamic, and to believe that somehow the government should have been your savior. But we think that whole dynamic of the attitude is going to change. And it's going to become more a dynamic of a local, regional, energetic dynamic, that it's going to be able to respond to situations like this. Again, opportunity for change, reflection of positivity, reflection of hope.